The views expressed in this blog are hosted on my own website, are strictly personal, and do not reflect the views of any organization. Hello and welcome, friends, to Straight Bat, my weekly video blog where, as the title suggests, I comment with a straight bat. This week, a straight bat with a difference, a blast from the past where I turn the clock back a bit and, dare I say, get a tad nostalgic. This has been a week where the news that NDTV or New Delhi Television Network is being taken over by the Adanis has dominated some of the headlines. The evening that the story broke, when I returned home, I must confess, I had a slightly melancholic, sentimental feeling. After all, I did spend 11 of the best years of my professional life at NDTV, particularly in the 1990s. On my wall at home, there is a photo that is a reminder of those early 1990s NDTV days, a photo that I have shared on my Twitter timeline subsequently. The photo has Harkishan Singh Surjit, the Chanakya, eminence gris of the CPIM, sitting on the extreme right side of the frame. Take a look. I am sitting next to him. Next to me is Dr. Pranoy Roy. Then there is the cephalogist Dorab Sopariwala, Mahesh Rangarajan, the academic. And guess who is on the extreme left of the picture? Yes, it is the one and only Narendra Damodar Das Modi. It's a picture taken from the days when NDTV was running a channel called Star News, and from the period of 1998-99, during one of those long live election shows that we were having. Remember, election counting in the 1990s was pre-EVM, so it was not a T20 match as it is today. It went on over 2 to 3 days, more like an unfolding test match drama. You know, what struck me instantly when I saw that photograph on my wall was just how much the TV world has changed in the 24 years since we took that photograph. Mr. Modi's presence in the TV studio may surprise many today who have not seen the Prime Minister even address a live press conference in the last 8 years. But truth be told, there was a time when Mr. Modi was a regular in our studio. He was then the BJP General Secretary in charge of many North Indian states and was keen to make an impression on the national stage as he moved from Gandhinagar to Delhi. He relished being in front of the camera. He was an excellent communicator and he was always ready for a joust, a sharp question and answer session. Even in this photo, if you look once again closely, it is Mr. Modi who is speaking while the rest of us are listening. Now, there is a story that I've written in my 2014 election book, which is one of my favorite Narendra Modi stories from that 1990s period. You see, me and Arnab Goswami used to co-anchor a show on NDTV at 10 p.m. every night called Newshour. You can imagine the noise level in the late 1990s. One day, we were doing a show on a topic that required guests from both the BJP and the Congress. The Congress guest was to be Rajesh Pilot, the late Rajesh Pilot. The BJP guest was to be Vijay Kumar Malhotra. Now, in those days, we didn't have 8 to 10 guests popping out in a large panel out of a television screen. It was a much, much calmer world. Now, at around 8 p.m., with just a couple of hours to go for the live show, we got a call from Mr. Malhotra's office saying that the BJP leader was unwell and therefore would not be able to join us. We were in a bit of a spot. Do we cancel the show? Well, that's what Arnab suggested. No point having a show with just the Congress guest. We can't do a debate with just one guest. We tried a few other BJP leaders and they all seemed busy that night. Then I told Arnab there was one person who I could even try this later who might join us for the show in the studio. So I picked up the phone and spoke to Narendra Modi ji. Modi ji, tamari jarurat che. Always speak in the regional language when you need something with our neta. So Modi ji, I need you is what I said. You know, the sharp politician that he is, Mr. Modi ji realized immediately that he was a last minute choice. लगता है आपका guest drop हो गया है, he told me, Rajdeep. Yes, sir, I admitted meekly to him, but insisted that we needed him for the show. To our delight, Mr. Modi agreed, but he had one other small problem. You see, in those days, Mr. Modi, like many other BJP politician pracharaks from the RSS, lived a rather Spartan life next to the BJP headquarters on Ashoka Road. So he tells me, Rajdeep Babu, I don't have a car to come, no driver. So I said, sir, taxi le lijiye, please come. I will make sure we are reimbursing you the moment you land up in the NDTV headquarters. I will reimburse you for the taxi journey. Well, as it turned out, with just minutes to go for our 10 p.m. show, Mr. Modi rushes in, immaculately dressed as ever, broad smile on his face, and that's right, folks. The country's most powerful politician today, who keeps journalists at several arms' length, was then a regular on our shows. I reveal these stories, as I said at the outset, from a nostalgic point of view, if only to remind myself and indeed you who are listening that the TV world was a very different place in so many ways from the frenetic world we find ourselves in today. There was a time in the 1990s, there was Star News. We only had Star News managed by NDTV. Z News operating as round-the-clock channels. Aaj Tak had a half-hour show which would eventually become a very successful 24-hour news channel in 2001. So basically in the late 90s you had what, 2.5 networks competing for eyeballs, along with of course good old Doordarshan. But there was no internet, no mobile phones, no Instagram, no Facebook, no Twitter, no social media at all, no thousands of YouTube channels, no OTT. It was in that sense a quieter world, far from this hyper competition we find ourselves in today. Best of all, we didn't have to worry about breaking news and about TRPs. Content in that sense was king. You had time to do your stories well and press the pause button for news and life. We could even go for long lunches to my favorite place, Andhra Bhavan, because as I said, the concept of breaking news had still not quite entered the news universe. For netas like Mr. Modi too, coming to the studio was a practical necessity in a sense. We didn't have enough OB vans to do these long distance interviews. No Zoom calls, no live view that could instantly connect us to any guest in any part of the country. I still recall, in fact, doing a big fight debate once in the studio on Gandhi versus Ambedkar with Arun Shauri, Kashi Ram and Pranam Mukherjee all in the studio. Can you ever imagine that happening today? Three stalwarts coming together in the studio? More famously, I recall that the last time Mr. Modi did a studio debate was also on the big fight in September 2001, within days of the 9/11 attack 2001. It's a show on terrorism and Islam that even today attracts a lot of comment and eyeballs. The point I'm making, friends, somewhere is that TV news was a truly buzzing space, but a space that connected netas, journalists and viewers in a unique manner that was almost revolutionary in design and delivery. In the process, private news TV was able to break the Doordarshan monopoly and create a paradigm shift in viewer habits in the media world. We could argue today whether that revolution has lost its way in the noise of breaking news, whether somewhere down the line business imperatives have taken over from journalistic integrity. But make no mistake, my friends, the likes of Pranoy and Radhika Roy at NDTV, Arun Puri at TV Today and Subhash Chandra at Z are true pioneers, people who saw the future long before anyone else did. Which is why amidst all this talk and this churning over media takeovers, I do really think that all of us owe a huge debt as TV professionals to these outstanding media innovators and creators. So today, let me just use this straight bat to just say thank you to those who showed us the way, the path breakers whose early vision in a way has spawned an industry which today has more than 400 24/7 licensed news channels. I could look wistfully back and say, Kahan Gaye Woh Din, or simply just say, those were the best days of our lives. Think about it. That was the straight bat. Do, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel for many more such videos. For now, stay well, stay safe. Jai Hind, Namaskar.